Hey guys, I'm Phil Town from Rule 1 Investing, and today I want to talk to you about profit and loss statements and what they mean for you as an investor. Hey guys, before we get into this topic today, I just wanted to remind you all that I have a giveaway going right now, celebrating the fact that I recently hit 100,000 YouTube subscribers. I'll be giving away a bunch of prizes, including a full ride scholarship to my 3-day workshop in Atlanta, Georgia. Just click on the link in the description for the contest details and to enter. Now, before and after you invest in a company, there is no shortage of information available that you can use to determine just how that company is performing. One really important piece of information that can be used to gauge a company's performance is in the profit and loss statement. The P&L, that's what they call it, profit and loss. The P&L statement is one of 3 statements that every publicly traded company is required to release each quarter. A P&L statement shows a company's revenue, right, top line, expenses, and net income, bottom line, for the quarter. And that provides investors like me and you with the information regarding how much the company brought in, how much they spent, and the difference between the two. Now, in addition to this, the P&L breaks down each of these figures into individual categories of revenue and expenses. And what that does is it lets you get a feel for how the company's spending money and how they're earning money. When a company releases their quarterly reports, the 2 figures that always make the headlines are revenue and earnings per share. They also call that EPS. Now, many times, these 2 numbers are the only information that investors pay any attention to. If the revenue and the EPS are below what the analysts are expecting, then the price of the company's stock often will take a big hit and drop like a brick. However, looking at these 2 figures alone ignores so much information, much of which can also be found in the P&L statement. For example, the company may have a lot of one-time expenses that lowered their EPS for just that quarter. And likewise, a company might report some growth of revenue, but that could be offset by a big jump in the expenses. So they could report growth in EPS that's due more to the company buying back stock or reducing the number of shares. A lot of different ways they can play with these numbers, more so even than the company growing their profits. So you kind of got to understand what these numbers are saying. Now, none of these things are inherently negative or inherently positive all by themselves, but they are factors that we, as good owners of those businesses, should be aware of. Once you better understand how to analyze a P&L statement, you're going to have a more solid understanding of a company's finances each quarter. So how can rule number 1 investors use P&L statements? All right, rule number 1 investing is at its heart a long-term investing strategy. What this means is that Rule 1 investors are very much less concerned about these really short-term factors that may boost or drop a company's stock price because of some quarterly number, and are much more concerned about long-term growth and the long-term value of the business. So looking at the revenue and the EPS alone, it doesn't tell you the full story of how well the company is performing and the kind of growth that they're delivering. All right, analyzing a company's P&L statement provides you with a detailed look at how well the company performed for a given quarter, and it might give you some insight on what the future of the company might hold in store. Now, what that means is that P&L statements are an important tool that we can use to better understand the value of the company that we own. In some cases, the stock price of the company may drop after the quarterly statements are released due to short-term factors. So this is really exciting for us if we're interested in buying a company that has a value up here and a price down here. So even though digging into the P&L statement might reveal positive signs for the company's growth, they have a little bit of a tweak in the quarter and boom, down goes the stock. That could be really good news for us. Other times, the P&L statement might reveal negative signs that would encourage a Rule 1 investor to maybe be thinking that something is changing in the story about this company, and that lets us dig in deeper to see if we want to get out. Now, when it comes to investing, and Rule 1 investing in particular, information about a company and how it is performing is just invaluable. We have to treat these businesses as if we own the whole thing, just like you would if you own a McDonald's franchise or a laundromat. You're going to get information from a P&L statement that's going to provide us with a tool that we can use to better evaluate the strength of our investment or our potential investment. So you guys, we've talked a little bit about the kind of financial statements that we have when we're looking at an investment, and we talked a little bit about the profit and loss statement, or what we call the P&L. And you'll remember we discussed that it shows the revenue of the business, the expenses of the business, and the earnings of the business. But I want to emphasize something in this video. This one, when we talk about P&L, I want you to understand it in the context of all three of the financial statements. Of the three financial statements, the P&L is the one that is most likely to be manipulated by clever little accountants out there who want to make their company look good to the people who don't look too deeply. In other words, the people who are spending 85% of the money in the market, the professional investors who are running funds. And the reason that they don't look too deeply, we talked about a little bit last time when we talked about P&Ls, and that is that they're looking at EPS, they're looking at revenue, sort of top line, bottom line, good enough to go. Why is that good enough? Because these guys own 100 to 200 stocks. They cannot possibly keep up with this stuff on a quarterly basis. So they use a shorthand. Oh, we're going to estimate that earnings are $1.22. Oh, they came in at $1.20. Get out of the stock. It's the end of the world. It's nuts how they treat P&Ls. But because they don't spend a lot of time really digging into the companies that they have, they don't think of themselves as owners of a business. They think of themselves as owners of a piece of paper. Then what's going to happen is they're just going to bail out on some sort of shorthand for whether the company's doing really good or not on a very short-term basis. And you have to remember that the fund managers who control most of the money in the stock market are judged on their performance on a quarterly basis. So not only the CEOs have a gun at their head from the fund managers, but the fund managers have a gun at their head from their bosses, typically the big pension funds. So if you're sitting there and you're not making as much money in the market as your competitors or your peer group of other fund managers, guess what? You get fired by that pension manager. He'll take his $50 million out of your fund and stick it over to somebody else. And they'll do that if you have one bad quarter. If you have two, see ya, they're gone. And you just spent the last 12 years getting to this wonderful place where you're managing a fund and bam, you're fired. So let me tell you, the pressure is intense on these guys and they have way too many stocks. They have no choice other than to take shorthands and jump out and be scared all the time. We don't do that. That isn't investing. That's just speculating. It's just running around with momentum in the market, trying to catch up with everything that's going up and get out of everything that's going down. And what you'd need for that to do that well is a gigantic crystal ball, and none of them have that. As a result, Charlie Munger says that 95% of the people who are managing money in the stock market make witch doctors and shamans look good. There's only about 5% of the people out there managing money that are doing it rationally, and we want to be able to take advantage of that. That's why we're spending all this time. Now, back to the P&L. The P&L is what they use to determine whether they're going to be in or out of that thing on a quarterly basis based on top line growth or losses, based on bottom line growth or losses. We talked a little bit about that last time. Let me tell you, the P&L is subject to so much manipulation by the accountants in that company because of accrual accounting systems, which allow them to call a sale revenue even though they never got any money yet. And they can also call earnings even though they don't have any, which is crazy, except the accountants can find reasons to tell us that that's a reasonable thing to do. Okay, fair enough. It's going to give us some information. We're going to be able to see, at least according to accrual accounting, are they growing their revenue and are they growing their earnings? But of the three financial statements, the P&L is the least important one. What we want to look at is the results of the P&L shifted back to cash accounting, and that happens on the cash flow statement, which we will get to later. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea that it's not all about earnings per share. It's not all about revenue. What it's really about is what kind of money, if I owned the whole business, would I be putting in my pocket at the end of every year? We don't call that earnings per share. We call it owner earnings, and we're gonna have a nice little lesson on that coming up real soon. Now, I'd love to hear from you guys. How do you look at P&L statements? Do you use P&L statements in your investing? Do you even look at them? Do you know what they say? Can you read the language of business? So leave a comment below with your answer, you guys, and I'll be sure and follow up with you. Now, thanks for watching, and go play. If you guys enjoyed this video and you feel it was valuable in teaching you more about financial statements and financial metrics, hit the like button and please share the video with your friends. And if you want more investing content, subscribe to my channel and don't forget to click the button on the screen for a free gift. Now, thanks again for watching, you guys.